and the weepy, histrionic temperament of a teenage girl. He was babbling to no one in particular as he scarfed down fistfuls of Skittles from a paper bag. It soon became apparent to me that Leyner wasn't like the other TV writers I had met. He was a medical autodidact with an astonishingly bizarre and encyclopedic store of arcane medical knowledge. Within 5 minutes, Leyner had regaled me with the precise pharmacokinetics of Jimson weed, a Fijian folk remedy for cannibal indigestion, the history of turf toe and crotch rot, and the inexplicable prevalence of supernumerary testicles in Wilkes Barre, Pennsylvania. I knew it was going to be an interesting night. As I made rounds with Leyner at my side, the first new patient to arrive was an EDP. This is the term that we use for an emotionally disturbed patient. He was wildly agitated, and a dozen burly New York City EMS personnel and cops were barely able to keep him restrained on a stretcher. Mark and I hurried over to see him, wide-eyed and ranting psychotically. He was screaming in Spanish and English. "I am Superman, motherfucker! Get me Jimmy Olsen! I am faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive!" I stepped up to the bed with the goal of getting an IV in and calming Superman down. He screamed again, "I am Superman, goddammit! Your medications won't work on me!" Leyner, who had been coolly observing the scene with clinical detachment, popped some Skittles in his mouth and made a stunningly unorthodox suggestion. Give him kryptonite. I know that as you tell a story many times, it begins to get embellished, but I remember that these words, and these words alone, calmed the patient enough so that we could get the drip going and get him under control. The night continued to be a strange mix of the bizarre and touching, and I left my shift feeling that this strange little man would somehow have a profound effect on my life. I'm Mark, and even though I come from a long line of lawyers, and in this society lawyers and doctors are like warring sects in the Balkans, I'd always had a deep fascination with medical matters. Whereas most boys would subscribe to Sports Illustrated and Boy's Life, I waited eagerly for the mailman to deliver Annals of Gastrointestinal Surgery and Journal of the American Society of Investigative Pathology. Most kids begged their parents for trips to Disney World. I annually implored mine to take me to the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia, which houses this country's most glorious collection of medical oddities, including conjoined fetal quintuplets in formaldehyde and the preserved remains of the world's largest colon. I did seriously consider becoming a doctor, until I went to Brandeis, that is. There I saw firsthand the future doctors of America. Bunch of whining, ass-kissing, unscrupulous, morbidly neurotic pre-med students. My fascination didn't die, though. In fact, it became my secret inner life, resulting in my first book of fiction being entitled My Cousin, My Gastroenterologist. So I guess that my obsessive inclusion of graphic medical detail in all my subsequent books, and a script I wrote for MTV entitled Iggy Vile, M.D., featuring an ale-swilling football hooligan punk of a surgeon, is what prompted Peter Berg to invite me to write for a television hospital drama he'd created called Wonderland. I'd just begun working on my first Wonderland script when Peter called me one night, raving about this guy who worked in the ER, this guy Billy Goldberg. And I took it all with a grain of salt, expecting him to be a grown-up version of the Brandeis pre-meds, but I agreed to meet him anyway. It turned out to be a glorious night. Billy was not the simultaneously insipid and officious physician I expected at all. The night was a revelation. What I saw that evening was amazing. A Chinese chef hit in his head with a meat cleaver, a Russian guy who came in with his ear in a bag of ice after his Rottweiler bit it off, and of course, Superman. But it wasn't just the voyeurism. There was an immediate, genuine connection between Billy and me, and there was something deeply compelling about the way he responded to the human needs of the people he treated in that chaotic and bizarre environment. Back to Billy. Several days